now take you to the broadcast of It's Time with Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. Here's Reverend Martin.
Thank you, Dr. Blackwell. Let me say good morning, good afternoon, possibly good evening, but never good night, and never, ever goodbye. I've always hated goodbyes from childhood, but of course that is personal trauma. My name is the Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. I'm the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the city of Los Angeles, and we trust that you are beginning to overcome the coronavirus and the impact that it has been having on our nation for a year now. And we trust that God's hand have rested gently upon you, and He have held you up in spite of all of the struggles, trials, tribulations which we have had to undergo. God is able. I tell you to continue to trust and put your faith in Him. The offering which you are viewing or listening to, this presentation is entitled It's Time, and the question must be asked, what is it time for? And it is always time for justice. It is always time to do good, always time to do that which is right. And in talking about social justice, we must always talk under the heading of environmental and economic justice. Environmental because things outside of you, away from you, but yet in your vicinity, although they be, as the sociologist said, way up in Washington, D.C., but yet they impact you where you are. And so we have to always be conscious of our environment. Another example would be that recently, I believe it was this week, that it was a vote to move a heavy pollutant factory from where it is now and move it to the side of town where the black people live. That's another type of environmental impact, injustice that has to be corrected. It affects your health, and public health affects everything around and about you. And also, as another component to social justice in this capitalistic system, is always the need for economic justice. And for the black man, economic justice must always involve reparation, regardless of those who have made it and become rich. They are not our spokespeople. The millionaires among us, regardless of how well-meaning they may be, and some of them are not that well-meaning, whether it be Condoleezza Rice or Colin Powell or Barack Obama or Herschel Walker or any of the others, have no right to speak up for us and tell the Congress that we don't need no reparation. Yes, we do need reparation. There are millions of us who are still languishing under the heat of oppression, who are still languishing under systemic racism, and you can try to disguise it as you will, whether you're one of these Wall Street gurus and you want to tell everybody about why you're not rich because you're on the wrong side of the techno chasm boom. No. We have been systematically denied and historically denied our place in the sun. And we keep hearing this old hackneyed calumny about pull yourself up by your bootstraps, or if you just work hard, you'll get your reward. And who worked harder than the slaves? And what type of reward did they get when slavery was over? So that type of foolishness is only that, something that those who have not worked hard but have yet enjoyed the benefits of those who did work hard say in order to encourage those whom they hope will work themselves into the grave. I fail to say that I am the Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin and the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the city of Los Angeles, and we're located at 8916 South Main Street here in the wonderful city of LA, and we are blessed to be worshiping with our sister church in their building, the Shiloh Missionary Christian Church, pastored by my good friend and fellow traveler, Dr. Della F. Hollins. And we thank God that she has recovered from the coronavirus, and her family as well, and she's doing well. And she was back at church the last couple of Sundays, and we're just glorifying God and praising God that He was able to that He saw fit to lift her up off of her sick bed, a bed of affliction, and restore her to good health. God is able, and we need to continue to fellowship, not forsake the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, which is an old scriptural observation, but nonetheless true in the past and yet true in the present. We need people who think the same way, who have the same culture, same language, same interests, need to get together to encourage each other. There's so much that is transmitted subliminally when we are in each other's presence in worship. Now, having broached to you about reparations, let us read a reparation scripture, one in the Old Testament. That's not the only one. When I began this broadcast, we were using the book of James in the New Testament, but I like this one here in the Old Testament because it lays out before us almost in detail the steps to be taken. It says, Deuteronomy chapter 15, beginning at verse 12, for those of you that would like to go back and follow along, even if it's no more than to challenge. It says, and if thy brother, an Hebrew man or an Hebrew woman, be sold unto thee, and serve thee 6 years, then in the 7th year thou shalt let him or her go free from thee. And when thou sendest them out free from thee, thou shalt not send them away empty, but thou shalt liberally furnish them out of thy flock, and out of thy floor, and out of thy winepress, of that wherewith the Lord thy God has blessed thee. Thou shalt give, not lend, not lease, not rent. Thou shalt give unto them, so that when they leave your property, they have an opportunity to make it now. They're not going out there with empty pockets and nothing to hold on to, no food for the evening, no shelter, no clothing to get between them and the wind or the sun. And when you compare this step-by-step declaration and instruction that God gave to the children of Israel, and when you compare that to how the people in the so-called Bible Belt, those who call themselves Christian and godly and preacher and teacher and missionary and evangelist and all of those titles, when you consider how the people in the Bible Belt treated our brothers, our sisters, our forefathers, our foremothers when they were released from 246 years of unrequited toil as mere chattel. That means personal, portable, movable property that the person can say, that's my personal, portable property. I can move it where I want. It is my property. You see how that we were treated not only in slavery, but when the slavery formally ended following the surrender of Robert E. Lee at Appomattox Courthouse to General Ulysses S. Grant. Still, the people who had held us in slavery were not disposed to follow the scriptural mandate. If they had done no more than do what Jesus told them, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I was hungry and you fed me. I was naked and you clothed me. They never did any of that for the poor slave. You see, you can't tell a man, as Lyndon Baines Johnson said in that speech that he gave at Harvard University, so you don't take a man who has been shackled for generations or for years, bring him up to the take the shackles off of him, bring it up to the starting point of a race, and tell him you are equal with everybody else up here. No, those other people have not been in shackles. They have not been in bondage while they are at the height of their game. Whereas the person who is coming out of bondage has still got a lot of catching up to do, and that is where. Again, where America began to fall down. They had the opportunity to get it right in Reconstruction, but they refused. They had the power to do right, but they also had the power to do wrong. And which power won out? Why, it was the power to do wrong. That's why I'm talking to you about it right now. And we cannot dismiss the past. Someone said the past, I think it was... said the past is always with us. That was one of the old authors from Mississippi. I can't think of his name right now, much as I've read his works. The past is never past. And that is so true. And so we have these issues yet to be confronted. That ledger is still calling for redress. That accounting still has to be made, and those errors in multiplication and in division and in addition still have to be corrected. You know, you can't, if you say 2 and 2 is 5, no, you may say it's 5, but that's not what the record shows. It says 2 and 2 is only 4, and 1 and 1 makes 2. And if you're going to be correct, then you must accurately reflect what is there on the paper. As Dr. Martin Luther King said in his final speech there in April of 1968, April 3rd, that night, said, all we're asking is that America will be true to what you said on paper. And truly, if America had actually lived up to what it said on paper, we would not be talking about this here in the year of 2021. While we've been talking about this ever since 1619. And the ledger must be corrected. The accounting must be accounted for. The reckoning must be reckoned. I live right now in the state of California. Came out here from Texas. I always heard that California was the land of milk and honey. My, what surprise awaited me when I arrived here and began to see that the poison, the toxin, the crime of systemic racism was as much embedded in the system and institutions of Los Angeles, California, as it was in Houston, Texas, where it appears that the more things change, the more they remain the same. Many of my old friends who have gone on to glory now used to say, well, the bee will sting you about the honey, and the cow will kick over the milk. And of course, that was a metaphor for the fact that there was a great deal of pain and suffering between starting out on your objective and reaching or attaining your objective. There were many stumbling blocks put in the way, and a lot of those stumbling blocks were systemic racism. Shouldn't have been there. Had no right to be there. But yet, surprisingly, surprise, old Jim Crow was out here in California also. This week we found out that the city of Manhattan Beach has voted in its city council chambers that they are going to return 100 years later, over 100 years later really, because it's 2021. The land was taken away in, well, it's good, 1924. They're going to, the point is that they're going to return the portion of land and property that they took away, just stole from the black people who used to live on the beach in Manhattan Beach when this state was, and in this county was in its early formative years. Telling you how racism works. You know, we talk about the ability to pass along inherited wealth. Well, in 1912, the city of Manhattan Beach, right down the road from where we are, just a few miles south, was incorporated, and a white fellow named George M. Peck owned the beachfront area, which was in the northern portion of Manhattan Beach. And what he did, knowing the systemic racism, he gave away 2 blocks. Now, mind you, Manhattan Beach is only 3.93 square miles. That's all. But yet it is the 27th most expensive zip code out of 42,000 zip codes across this nation. That tells you something about Manhattan Beach. Only 3.93 square miles. But my, how people love to go to the beach. Why? You can go down to the beach. You can look at the water. Water is a great pacifier. It's a great calmer. You feel very calm and serene when you can get down and sit down on the beach. Well, this George M. Peck set aside 2 blocks of land for the Negroes to buy. All right, so Mr. Charles and Miss Willa Bruce come with their money, $1,225, and they bought 2 plots of land down there on the beach in Manhattan Beach. And after them came some other blacks, and they plopped down their money. Mind you, they put down their money. They paid their bill. That property was theirs. But yet, from the very beginning, much like back south, the Ku Klux Klan violently harassed them and caused them great amounts of anxiety, because you can imagine. And so they still couldn't run the Negroes out of Manhattan Beach. They said, this is our property, we own our property, we own it legally, we're here lawfully, and we're going to stay here. And so what happened was that then the other arm of systemic white supremacy came into being. The first arm is the violence, but the second arm is the legislative. And by legislative, I mean that the city council voted that they were going to put a park where Mr. and Mrs. Bruce had built their home, had built a beachfront resort, and black people could come down and be on that property and on that resort and enjoy the beach. That's what was happening. And they had a growing business down there. They were doing quite well, very well. There wasn't no homeless. There was no skid row or anything like that. They had a very fine, prime piece of real estate property which they had develop with their own hand, their own resources, their own finances, and they were doing quite well. And lots of Negroes were coming down to get some recreation and on the beach, quite naturally so. But it looked like whenever black people are doing good, somebody don't like it. And so consequently, when the violent arm could not prevail, even after they had tried to set the place on fire and all like that, and done all manner of mean things short of murder, but of course that was on the agenda as well. And then they had started to set up fake no parking signs. Parking signs said 10 minutes, and had discouraged a lot of the Bruce's business, because people can't park. You don't want to get no big ticket, get your car towed and all of that, even way back there in 1912, 1924 and all like that. Long story short, the city council voted that they were going to take that property by eminent domain. Eminent domain has been used all over this country to drive out the poor from their property, drive them out from their land, drive them away from their homestead, drive them away from their landmark. And everybody knew it was racially motivated and racially driven. And the city council therefore drove the Bruces out. They fought them in court for years. The Bruces originally wanted to try to get $120,000, which is a lot of money back in those days. $70,000 for the land, and the rest of the money in damages. You know how it goes. And however, the city council finally settled with them some years later for $14,500. But in other words, they were driven out of their home that they had built, that they had financed, that they had struggled to put together. They had sweated and cried and birthed this fine beachfront recreation facility. But because of racism, they were now driven out of it, driven away from there. And so they had to go to work for other people. And you can't blame them. Some of them just plain got up and left the state. One of their surviving relatives who actually would talk about the situation is Mr. Anthony Bruce, but he's living down in Florida at this very hour. And some of the other surviving relatives are Mr. Bernard Bruce. Couldn't even talk about it without, such grief and such anxiety and such emotion overcoming him that the newspaper people couldn't interview him about it. Well, long story short, this year, well, it didn't start this year, it started back in 2006 when they had their first Negro on the city council. Remember, the place was started in 1912. And here you come 2006 before you get your first black city council official. Isn't that something? How long many years was that? Somebody tell me. And long story short again, because I know we run out of time, the city councilman's name was Mitch Ward is his name, Mitch Ward. And he was able to prevail against the city council, to rename that park, because the park had several other names. After they took the people's property, they demolished everything that was there. They took the Bruce's property, they just demolished everything, just left it bare. All right, in 1950, the city council and the people around there said, well, we told them we was taking that land to put a park. And if we don't put a park there, then they may turn around and sue us to get their property back. So they gave the park various names, and I think the last name before was Bayview. or some such name. I would tell you can't do wrong and get by. And so this Mitch Ward, black city councilman on the Manhattan Beach City Council, was able to prevail on them to rename that park in honor of the people who originally had purchased that land in Manhattan Beach. And of course it's named Bruce's Beach in honor of the Bruce family. And of course that has made the papers, and it sounds good. It makes it sound like the white folks really doing. White folks ain't doing nothing. They are not doing anything. They still owe those people for driving them out. Think about the years of wealth that those people could have accumulated and collected, that they have in turn been able to pass on to their next of kin, to their children, their grandchildren. But no, they were driven out. And so, and that story, of course, multiplies all across this country of these here United States of America. No, they haven't done anything. What? Because you take the Indians' land and then call it Indian land? No, that don't mean nothing. And so, don't get excited about this little cheap token. That's all it is, a cheap token. Now, if they come up with the $75 million that they need to pay those people for those years of pain and suffering, and Mr. Bruce has passed, or Mr. Charles Bruce, Mrs. Willa Bruce, all that generation have gone on to be with the Lord, but they were denied their right to their property that they had paid for and worked for and developed. And that is why I always look askance at those who want to tell you, say, now if you work hard, play by the rules, you'll get everything you want. You'll attain the American dream. Well, those people had the American dream, and it was taken away from them. Just like the Indian had the whole country, and it was taken away from them. And so America has a great debt, a great, huge debt of reparations and repayment because things were done illegally. And just because you can make it look good in the law did not make it morally right. And so I think they gave me my signal. And so you can multiply this story. Go to Fontana. Go to Santa Monica. Go to Venice right now and see who's taking over all that land down there, all those houses and everything. So systemic racism is still winning. And the people who work the hardest are still getting the leastest of the rewards. And so you have to come and make your appeal and demand justice, demand your rights, demand your payment. And regardless of the form if it's going to come in, it's got to come in because that account must be settled. Here I am. I'm telling you that old account has got to be settled. While none of us is where we would be had this systemic racism never existed or never been applied. But ever since the European came off of the European coast, he has been a plague and a pest. A doom and a sorrow to many generations of well-meaning, hard-working people all around the world. And so as we wrap up, my brothers and my sisters, we want to encourage you to keep on doing right, keep on fighting, standing up for right. The women are out in the streets. That's a good thing. They need to be out there. We need to be out there with them. Black Lives Matter is out in the street. We better be out there with them. You see, all of these Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, they're out in the streets. We better be out in the streets with them because of the fact that this is our country, and if we want righteousness and justice to prevail, then we must be the ones who bring it in ourselves. We must not wait for the other fellows to get a change of heart and decide that he is going to do right, as they have demonstrated and exhibited the way they went over the Capitol walls and all of that. They don't have no intention to do right. They are upholding as best they can the last vestiges of white supremacy. Living is at 30. They don't want to give you decent hours. They want you to call you at any time. You got to stop, sacrifice your life to come work for 2 or 3 hours. No. What they're telling you is they don't want to pay you. And if they don't want to pay you, why are you working for them? Tell them, take this job and shove it. I will trust in the Lord. God bless you. Thank you, Doc. We're out of here.